So I'm Dr. Kaj, as most of you know. I'm one of the consultants at Newham Centre for Mental Health, and I've been visiting here, welcomed here a few times now over the years, and it's always been a pleasure to present and learn together from this. So what I hope to do today around ADHD is raise awareness, raise understanding, and demystify what ADHD is. So first topic of the point will be, what is ADHD? This cacophony of things that may happen within the brain. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. It's kind of there in the title itself. There's a couple of areas within that domain. So we're thinking about impulsivity, inattention, focus, and hyperactivity, extra energy. And these are all coming together as characteristics within something known as a neurodevelopmental disorder, something that is about growing up and how the brain develops during the growth. It's usually recognized around 6 to 8 years old, as one gets more challenged within the education and social settings as they grow and emerge around society itself. But it can still develop into adulthood, where maybe the recognition picks up later on in life. Around 3 to 7% of the population are estimated to have these characteristics, but not often is it always diagnosed. And so maybe there's less than what we would assume. And this is where awareness and understanding can help to think about this more progressively. Why now? Why are we thinking about this? There has been more in the media. There's been more awareness to it or attention towards it. Is it trendy? Is it getting overdiagnosed? The truth is, no, it's not. And this is where we need to demystify these beliefs and make sure we understand what it is around and what we can do to help. What's interesting is that the characteristics were picked up back in the late 60s, where it was looked at more of a lot of energy, a hyperkinetic reaction within childhood. But it was only into the 2000s where it was more recognized and understood within the UK itself. So what we follow, a set of guidelines, NICE, which helps us to say, right, these features are indicative of these kind of situations and conditions. And only about 8 years following that was it understood that this can also present within adults as well. So it's not been that long when we think of medicine as a whole that it's been recognized and being understood. And so with these recent guidance and guidelines, it is that we can start understanding how the diagnosis is emerging more and being understood more by the clinicians and by the population around us. What is it about ADHD? Well, it's about this hormone dopamine within the brain. Dopamine, I guess most people may understand as something that's known as the feel-good chemical, the feel-good hormone. Technically, it's a chemical, a neurotransmitter, but it does more than just that. It helps to regulate and manage our motivation, our focus, our learning, and even our coordination, our motor skills. It isn't that dopamine is less or more available within the brain itself with those that have ADHD. It's more about how it's regulated and the difficulties that an ADHD brain has for that. And therefore, the efficiency of what it's using that isn't as optimized as we would hope. And so one may see dopamine being very abundant, and then the hyperactivity or impulsivity being aware, or dopamine not being utilized as well as possible, and where the inattentive mind may be more aroused. And this is what leads to the typical features that people consider around ADHD, and is this something that affects us? Can people stick towards tasks and focus aspects? Are they feeling more distracted easily? Is there greater risk-taking around it? Are the energy levels even higher? When we think about ADHD then and seeing it in those two features, there are actually 3 categories we can then break it down into. So the inattentive variant, which is where the easily distracted, the difficulty focusing arises. the hyperactive or impulsive variant, and that's where the energy level is more exercise, more excessive, and you see the impulsivity there. Or a combination of the two within it, and hence the title ADHD. So the symptoms that typically we can see, we've discussed some of these itself, but it can also affect, say, our coordination, our organization of the day, could affect our emotional regulation, how quickly we may speak or stumble over words, as well as those features we discussed earlier. There can also be positive aspects towards having these characteristics, and it could be more engaged within society, the creativity that can come from that, quicker decision making. So it isn't that there is complete dysfunction around this. There are positives that can be attributed and nurtured to it as well. When we think about the history of this condition and how it's led to be diagnosed, we think about it as a developmental, a growing condition, and how the brain and mind develops itself. So it makes sense to think about what are we noticing within children. When we think about one of those areas, inattention, these are the kind of things you may see with children who may have these characteristics. But bear in mind, kids are bundles of energy. Kids are bundles of curiosity. So it does not mean they have ADHD because of certain aspects of this. It's about recognition that if it's causing more dysfunction, what should we be thinking about, and could it be around this? So it might be they struggle with sustaining attention, particularly around maybe the activities we're doing or the coordinated playtime that's happening. Might be that they really struggle with the tasks that are set and sticking with that itself, the mental energy that there is for it. Completing the task, therefore, can be harder. Maybe people around them are moving, there's noises, and their distraction is much more marked. And similar, trying to set the day out, set the agendas out, that might be hard for them. And despite the guidance and the regular planning for it, it may still be tricky. Forgetfulness of what was just mentioned, or forgetfulness of what we were planning for the day-to-day, maybe those are things that are coming up. Energy, the typical kind of things we may see with hyperactivity, fidgeting or tapping the hands, tapping the feet, a repetitiveness to those situations, not able to sit still, stay seated in an expected time, perhaps during prayer, perhaps during the lecture or in the bus. Whether there's excessive running, climbing. Again, kids will be kids. Kids will want to be exploring in that. But is there much more of this happening in a time when it's not appropriate for that to be happening? And the leisure activities, is it really hard for them to maintain themselves quietly, or are there outbursts of energy, outbursts of sounds from them? Similarly, impulsivity. Is there an impatience that they need things straight away? Is there an impatience of waiting for one's turn to come around? Do they answer before the statements have been finished or the questions being asked? Are there difficulties in delaying the responses? And do they tend to interject, interrupt, put themselves within a communal time, as if one may be thinking, are they seeking attention? Are they seeking more of our time in these positions? So if you have any of these kind of queries or these ideas coming up, a suspicion that maybe ADHD could be something here, it could be helpful to go and speak to a professional about it. With older kids coming up to secondary school, it may be that there's academic changes. Maybe they're struggling with the homework, the assignments that are there to complete them on time. The schoolwork during the day, maybe the focus is harder to maintain it, and they're named as disruptors. Perhaps following the instructions that the teachers are providing or the adults are requesting, and staying organized for the planning towards getting to school, maintaining the school times and returning on time. Maybe they have troubles socializing, keeping friends, because others say is this impulsiveness, a rapid change in emotions, or breaking from the group themselves. Some people recognize with the emotional changes, tempers, flare-ups, sudden outbursts. There can also be difficulties with following rules or social rules or the home rules that are there. Poor timekeeping, keeping to time, staying on time. This could be picked up as tardiness, getting to school, and maybe waking up on time to get to school itself. And the disorganization, perhaps in their own living spaces, their bedrooms, it's messy, it's not coordinated, they're losing items, their belongings very often, and keeping a track of their belongings and where they keep it. These can be common signs. Within adults, it might be that these features are still ongoing or may become more apparent because there's more responsibilities on the individuals. There's less sharing around them. And so it can be a little bit different to what we may be picking up on in childhood. With adult ADHD, it can be misdiagnosed. Maybe there are other conditions or situations that are there, and that's why it can be later and later on. Perhaps there's anxiety, perhaps there's stresses in life, as opposed to picking up on ADHD. Things that might arise for adults with these characteristics are they able to remain focused on their tasks at work? Perhaps there's key performance indicators saying they're poorly performing. Perhaps they need to keep moving jobs in order to try and freshen things up, think that that wasn't quite suiting for them. There may be relationship difficulties because it's assumed that the connection to the other is not strong, they're missing dates, they're not coming home in time, the emotional dysregulation is arising around the impulsivity, and that can put strains on the timekeeping, the time management, which can lead to the chronic lateness, not waking up on time, leaving to get the train on the right schedule, and again, the deadlines that might be there for types of work that we're involved in. In terms of causes or risk factors, it's not fully understood about what exactly may arise towards ADHD. There is research that makes suggestions about a complex mix of environmental factors, so things around us that nurture us, that allows us to develop, as well as our inherent genetical makeup, what we inherit from our parents. Some of the key associations for the development of ADHD can be things around, and what has been assumed when we say environmental factors, around toxins or lead. It's a kind of may contribute, but hasn't been really definitively acknowledged. There's also the sense of, as one is growing up, around chaotic or stressful environments, how do children adapt towards that, the stresses that it may impose on them. And then if there are family members with neurodiverse conditions, ADHD, autism, there's a strong component that it can be inherited and amongst oneself there. Most of the studies are showing that there's a change within the brain's structure and the way it then functions, how dopamine is then managed within the brain. And it's within these areas, known as the frontal cortex, the basal ganglia, and for the symptoms that we think about, these are the areas that manage impulsions, attentions, and our coordinations, what we say executive functioning, planning tasks out and coordinating our physical motions towards them. Within pregnancy and pre-pregnancy times, aspects that have been known to raise kind of these situations are around smoking, alcohol, and certain drugs or illicit drugs. Low birth weight, premature births, they have also been associated to increase the risk of ADHD or even really neurodiversity. Traumatic head injuries, they can also lead to symptoms that may resemble ADHD but not necessarily be the cause for ADHD. So how do we diagnose it? If we're suspecting it, what should happen? If we have those curiosities and the considerations, we're seeing it within our children, first place is to speak to specialists, and the process of that is to speak to your GP or pediatrician. At school, it could be the SENCO, which is the Special Education Needs Coordinator. They will then guide towards how assessments can be conducted and making sure, is it this or could it be other reasons? For adults, similar. It's let's make our way to the GP, discuss how the assessments can be conducted. Problem with the adult service is there are long waiting times to get towards the specialist that assists with diagnosis and then treatments thereafter. But with recognition towards that, there is a pathway known as the right to choose, and they help with expediting and creating greater access to those specialists who might not be in the local area, but might be slightly further afield. And it's getting connected to them and seeing how soon we can see someone from area A or area C, and do we wish to go towards speed of time or familiarity. When we explore specifically around ADHD with children, we'll be looking at school reports, the collaterals from family, getting assessments from that. These are usually done by the Connors assessments, and these help us to guide what is being observed, what is being reported, what is being observed by the individual, so parents, teachers, what is directly observed in a clinical setting, often asking to come in for about half an hour, see how one is managing certain tasks. Having a full psychiatric review, making sure is it ADHD or could other features of our care and upbringing be reviewed and supported with. And also looking at cognitive, the processing, the understanding, the memory, because other features may be present that may mimic what ADHD may look like. That can be things such as learning difficulties as well. With adults, there's self-reported assessments, which we call ASRS. There's about 18 questions. DIVA, which is a diagnostic assessment. And again, we'll be looking for some collateral info, usually about someone who knows you from your childhood, so often parents or siblings, to then gather a bit more awareness about what has led to this point. What have we missed over that time that's led to this point in our adulthood? And again, physical assessments, because if we do want to explore health and treatments around it, we need to make sure our heart, our physical health is managing well. Why is a diagnosis helpful? We want to understand what's happening, help our children or our partners and their needs around this, for the guidance and understanding for them as well. So it's not a sense that they are being difficult, that they are a naughty individual. Getting advice can then guide schools and the education to really empower the whole family and the individual to get the right assistance to be the best they can be in these environments. And there are sometimes additional support within the home setting, whether it could be respite or financial assistance. For adults, again, it's understanding why something may be harder than the person next to us at work. Why are the ways of completing our tasks and following instruction, why is it a bit more difficult or challenging for me? It assists us with then exploring and explaining to others why we may react or respond in a certain way and why we may need more time or assistance. It can therefore assist us with that support needs within college, university, so our education, or workplace adaptations for us, and to get appropriate treatment. Treatment can come in a host of forms. When we think about medicine, we may think really medication, kind of hand in hand. With ADHD, there are treatments, medications, and they're often known as stimulant medications. What these do is they kind of boost more of the dopamine pathways and norepinephrine, and that helps to regulate and manage what is around the brain already. Most people that start these medications, so up to 80%, they notice improvements with it, whilst others require a bit more tweaking around the treatment itself, whether it's dose adjustments, time around it. But these are rather fast medications, so often when we start a medicine, we see notable changes. With the way these medications work, often there can be treatment-free times. So in a day, they may work for 2 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, or 24 hours, depending on the needs of the individual. So if we think about kids, it might be about the focus in the schooling time to assist them there. So the medicine is provided there. Then when they return home, the coordination, the activities, getting out and about, doesn't need those changes for it. Most will be on something such as methylphenidate. You may have heard things such as Medicanet or Concerta. There is also another group known as non-stimulant medications, and they kind of try to stop the breakdown of the dopamine that's already surrounding the brain itself. When we have one of these doses of these treatments, they work for the whole day. They take a little longer to work when we start off with the regime, but give it time, we often observe the benefits as we stick with that treatment model. But it's something that needs to be taken every day, so there isn't a treatment-free period. Typical examples you may have come across will be atomoxetine. But it's really important that treatment, particularly with medications, will work differently for different people. So everyone has to be tailored towards and supported towards, not just with medications, but the wider treatment model. With any of these meds, the typical kind of things that might come with side effects, so we say common side effects, are changes in appetite. Thereby, if we're not eating as much, what's happening to our calorie intake, the changes that arises with our weight. So we tend to say before you take the medication, have breakfast, set a routine for your meal time so the calorie intake, the regularity will be there. Because if you're not feeling hungry, you're not going to want to go and eat something. So it's getting a schedule and a regulation around it. Dry mouth can be a typical concern and situation as well. And so it's about taking a bottle of water with us, taking sips of water regularly, and trying to avoid things that cause dryness to the mouth itself. So hydration throughout the day will be really important there. The aim for any of these treatments is to improve the tolerance of the symptoms that we're observing. So when focus, inattention is there, we want to make sure it's boosted, want to make sure it lasts longer, that it's less of the distraction or the daydreaming that may arise. Organization improves, planning improves, problem solving thereby is improved on. The motivation arises for getting tasks started, getting them finished. Feeling calmer, feeling restful, less of that fidgeting that may come, feeling more in control of ourselves and our emotions. And with all of those aspects contributing to a better wellness and a well-being, helps us with our decision-making around our care and our thoughts, and thereby managing the workload that we have on a day-to-day basis, whether it's school, uni, work, or the relationships we have around us. ADHD is not curative. It is part of us. And so these treatments, these interventions, are meant to help us to manage, help us to overcome, and help us to live well. It's a part of us, and it's a part of learning about us. So it's not always medication. Not everyone needs medication either, because the varying level of the symptoms or the intensity of it can be marked or can be minimal. So we think about what else can be done in the wider domain, and we think about what's known as behavioral strategies. So though medication will improve the dopamine availability, the behavioral strategies will help compensate for how the ADHD brain handles the dopamine. And so when we want to look at how we motivate that to work better, we need to think about how we can add a stimulation pathway or an external reward pathway to be more useful to us. So some of these strategies can include what we term as body movement, and this could be, say we're working and we want to focus on that. You may have come across people using fidget spinners, things that spin round, or 6-sided, 8-sided die that they can roll around, which helps contain the focus and gives that energy elsewhere direction. Could be standing desks to maintain the leg movements and keep the energy going elsewhere, or walking while talking. Simple changes that can help benefit the engagement towards that environment. Gamifying tasks. What this really means is setting our own rewards towards certain times. So if we set a time, gain a reward towards it, we're turning challenges into a fun way of actioning it. And by completing it, have a reward towards the end, whether that's a sweet, whether that's then adding more time towards a leisure activity. The aim for that is the sense about immediate feedback. Immediate feedback goes back to how long we may be able to focus on something or be part of a task itself. So if we break the task into smaller steps, into quicker wins, this can help with completing bigger things over the day. The aim is that it provides structured stimulation to help with the restlessness that might be there. The aim is to create mini dopamine rewards, mini dopamine boosts that help us to feel more engaged to all of these actions and activities we need to complete. Creating a sense of urgency. When something's urgent, we get a sense of that adrenaline rush or that dopamine rush. And so the idea of this is to give that dopamine on demand by doing simple things that change within what is a natural trigger towards dopamine. The ways to do that can also be similar to what I've suggested earlier, which are those deadlines and timers. So if we give an artificial deadline for ourselves, or something known as the Pomodoro method, which asks to try and hyper-focus on a work for about 25 minutes and get it done as quickly as we can, these are one of those ways to get that hit that helps us to engage, take a break, engage, take a break. Accountability partners, telling someone that you're going to do something, so there's a repercussion if it's not completed, or there's a sense in yourself, I'm doing this for another, I must make sure I do this, it's not just for myself. It increases the drive of follow through. So I must do this, someone's expecting this of me. Body doubling, what that really means is working alongside someone else for the same activity. So they're doing the same task that you're doing, and you're mirroring both to make sure you complete it together. This helps with the focus towards the energy of that, and it helps towards overcoming procrastination. So as we see someone else moving forward, we're also saying, oh, that's a reminder, I need to be doing this as well. And that avoids this task paralysis where we get stuck and then need a reset or a boost to remind us that we're doing something. Dopamine-friendly planning and routines. Again, the brain is struggling with that delayed reward. It wants that immediate hit. And so there's strategies that can help with planning ahead to create what others may easily come by. These can be visual aids, visual planners, a visibility of the tasks, whether it's a notice board or on your fridge. Keeping things aware can help us to keep on track. Color coordination for that can also remind us of importance towards it. Habit stacking, tasks that are rather boring to ourselves, keep it with something that may be more excitable or enjoyable for us. Many of us might already do this, which is if we're doing cleaning at home, the vacuuming, maybe we have music on, stimulates that drive because we enjoy the music we're listening to, and now we're completing another task that we might otherwise not be able to achieve. Flexible routines looks at the structure and variety that helps us to change around when regular repetitiveness may struggle with the boredom towards it, and then the re-engagement for it. So being able to jump between things but keep on track can be a very helpful one And that might be more of about every couple of days, I'm going to be changing it up a little bit, rather than on the day, I'm changing it up constantly. There are also supportive therapies where another professional can be involved, and this could be psychotherapy, looking at where the relationship dysfunction because of how ADHD is affecting that. Could also be about the wider families and family therapies. Could be for the individual, looking at coaching and life skill training, so to get more of that planning and awareness around it, being more tailored to the individual rather than a one thing fits all. And within the workplace environment, it could be seeing an occupational therapist to help with amendments and scheduling and adjustments within the workplace itself, and employment advice to make sure that we're not being dismissed and seen as a problem, but seeing that there are aspects that help us to achieve if we're supported with that. When we think about the thinking education, so the learning, the psychoeducation, at school, there are support workers there. And we mentioned earlier about Senko. They can then guide teachers and the school environment to make sure it's really hospitable to one's nurturing needs, and a space to come and speak to them when things are not going as well as they were hoping for. For adults, it might be looking at other resources such as self-help books, websites and blogs where others are learning and sharing alongside, and online forums as well. There are sensory tools, sensory management, so we've talked about fidget spinners, it could be headphones, to try and minimize the extra sounds or noises around so it reduces the distractibility. Coming back to the lifestyle strategies, we're thinking about how we help that natural dopamine management. The lifestyle habits that can boost the production and the regulation and making symptoms more manageable. So if we think about exercise, we already start trying to plan ahead. If we go for our exercise, our runs, we have a scheduling that we have on that. The activity in itself not only fosters well-being and physical well-being, it also fosters that routine and it increases the dopamine management. Cardio, when we think about things that get us moving, running, swimming, cycling as examples, they're really good for that extra energy that's around us. Strength training and yoga, where there's distractibility and focus difficulties, these have often been other ways of managing in a slower, more scheduled manner. When we think about appetite, so not just when we're on medications and planning how we keep our eating habits going and our management going, what do we eat? We know that our diet, and diet is not dieting to lose weight, but maintaining healthy weight. We know that protein is a very important aspect of this because of how dopamine is made. The amino acids, they come from our proteins. So eating enough protein through the day, these can come from egg, fish, beans, meats. So these are all the kind of things that if we have them in our healthy eating can help us to promote more. If we have certain dietary needs, then there are other protein-rich sources as well. There has been some research about omega-3 fatty acids. I've not really seen it going towards, is it good, is it bad? It's something to be aware of. Generally, omega-3 is seen as a good supplement to be having for well-being, regardless. Sleep hygiene, very important. One of the things that we may not appreciate as much, a lack of sleep has its own worsening impact to our dopamine regulation. Generally, if we've had a really bad sleep, we wake up groggy and down. So if you imagine sleep cycle, our waking habits, a reduced sleep, it is going to have its impact to dopamine. And we're already saying that dopamine is something we're trying to manage and improve upon. So improving our sleep-wake cycle can be very good. It will help with our attention in itself and will reduce the intensities of the symptoms of ADHD. So having a consistent bedtime, having a consistent time to be waking up, limiting caffeine products. Caffeine is not just coffee, it comes in tea, it comes in fizzy drinks. So limiting those can really help with our sleep-wake cycle. As I said earlier, ADHD, some of the features can overlap with other conditions, other mental health conditions, other stresses of life. Anxiety and depression, OCD, these can be common things. There's also aspects around autism and very similar overlaps that can happen there. Dyslexia and dyspraxia, so if we're considering ADHD, are we thinking about these features? Learning disabilities. It's why that psychiatric assessment, the doctor review is really important to be engaged with, and to review that we're not jumping to one idea, but making sure we've explored everything and excluded other options. Sometimes things overlap, and sometimes there's more than just one feature that's arising. So the importance is recognition, awareness of ADHD, understanding how we can be supported to overcome those difficulties, understanding it's not someone doing it on purpose, it's part of them, and helping them to overcome those challenges, to be part of a developing society and a progressive society. So thank you all for listening. When I was saying about references, so these are some of the places I went to as well to pick up on some of that information and the ideas and resources as well. Were there any questions about this? Yes? The possible cause. It is split broadly towards the kind of nurture-nature. So genetics, if one in the family has health conditions of a similar nature, there's a likelihood that the individual may have it as well, or may possibly develop it. So very similar to things, say, diabetes, very similar autism, within the nuclear family, which is named as the immediate family, mum, dad, siblings, or first-degree relatives, uncle, auntie, grandparents. So there is a connection there, a strong connection there. As we're developing within the womb or the growth, what we're ingesting can go into the baby's development as well. So, and that's typical for a growing baby because we're brains forming, all the limbs and bones and organs. So if we're ingesting things that pass to the baby, we want to try and avoid those. And we know smoking, alcohol, certain drugs, even prescribed medications, really important to be aware that is it safe, is it important, how does that assist for a growing individual. Then in childhood, younger years, from 1 till 6, 1 till 10, it's about what's happening in the home environment. So the stress hormone, if there's lots of chaos or things happening, there's been recognition that around that can lead towards some pathology to it. Not to say 100%, but to say these are risk factors, and it's about increased risk.
And the first time, did you say no birth rate as well?
So after the pregnancy development, if early birth, so premature birth, or low birth weight, some of these have been connected towards it. As I say, it's risk factors. It doesn't mean that clearly is going to lead to this.
My understanding, to my understanding, autism and ADHD is the same, the neurodevelopment condition that causes the symptoms that comes with it, like, the fidgeting on the, and all the rhythm that come with these behaviors, yeah.
They are the classical examples, ADHD, autism, within neurodevelopmental conditions.
Yeah.
So the umbrella term is neurodevelopmental, and then within them we can say autism, ADHD. It's why things may overlap in terms of features, and why if one condition is recognized, there could be a connection to the other to be reviewed and excluded. What neurodevelopmental means is from the baby's growth and development in the womb, and then through childhood as we grow and develop, because the brain continues to grow, learn, and expand. It actually develops until we're in our early 20s. So all of that time, there's a possibility of something changing or not quite managing as it should have. Doesn't mean that something wrong or bad, just means that perhaps within this characteristics, we're going to experience things slightly different or react to things slightly differently. And that's individual, and that could be supported with to be part of the type of society we're in.
Thank you. Thank you. What do you think of the idea of neuroinflammation? So there's some sort of a breach in the blood-brain barrier, and things going across, that shouldn't go across and interfere with the function of the brain as a cause of these of ADHD or autism.
It depends on what neurotransmitter or area of the brain is being targeted or having difficulties. So in this specific situation, when we think of ADHD, we know there are two areas within the brain which focuses on our way we plan tasks, the way we move, our memory, our attention. So if something affects that area, and that's why when we said about head injuries, if it affects that area, if the chemicals that are meant to be managed correctly, if it affects that area, then we will see those characteristics, those symptoms arising.
Yeah, so I was talking about inflammation. Inflammation in the brain, could that be a cause? Some sort of inflammation?
Inflammation?
Yeah, neuroinflammation.
A swelling around that area.
It being inflamed.
Yeah. So anything that traumatizes, hurts, injures particular areas could have some impact, but then it's making sure that you treat the inflammation because there's a cause. If you remove the cause, the brain can respond and recover. It's why some things might mimic, and it's making sure why now, why then. And if there's a reversible cause, a bleed, a swelling, then that will be assisted for, compared to the development of the brain and the challenges of managing certain chemicals it's meant to manage correctly.
Thank you.
Or efficiently, rather.
Thank you.
ADHD and the autism, or even mental health, because they mimic each other, isn't it?
Things can overlap.
Yeah,
Characteristics or symptoms may overlap.
Yeah.
One who may feel anxious can have anxiety.
Yeah.
Could be anxious because they are scared of spiders. Could be anxious because it's part of a dysregulation of their capabilities of managing a certain hormone or chemical. So it's why giving time for an assessment with the right setting, with the right information shared, and gathering the observations helps to discern appropriateness of interventions. Interventions meaning treatments, support, psychology, adaptations around our social settings. So it does take time. It's not a quick, on-the-spot diagnosis, especially when we think of these particular substrates, neurodiversity. It's being really clear about why now, what's happened, what are the other aspects around us.
Thank you. Someone with ADHD, would it be advisable to drive? And the second one, I hear people saying that how ADHD affect a male would be slightly different from how it affects a female. And the third question is the 24-hour medication. If it affects your appetite, how would you manage that part of it? I hope I don't ask you too many questions at once.
I'll work backwards. So, how do you manage appetite reduction if we're on a 24-hour medication? It's that forward planning, making sure we're putting structure and good, healthy, nutritional value towards the meals, so 1, 2, 3 times a day. Being aware that our appetite will be diminished because of the medication that we're on. In terms of male versus female equity towards symptoms or recognition, I've not seen a difference between that for ADHD. Maybe autism is much more recognized that there are distinguishable features and how it manifests. But if we think the brain is the same regardless of gender and the way it manages and regulates dopamine, so the symptoms that manifest should be the same regardless of gender. The first question, could you repeat again, please?
Someone with ADHD, would it be advisable to drive?
To drive? The aim is to be a functioning individual, an independent individual. So as long as the symptoms that might cause dysfunction are managed, then we should be able to be living life as normal as possible, like anyone else. Yeah, if the symptoms are profound and causing dysfunction, that we can't focus on awareness of road safety, then already that should be an awareness that this is not safe to drive. But not everyone will have that level of dysfunction. Not everyone will have that particular feature or symptom. So it wouldn't be a generalized statement to say everyone with ADHD must not drive.
On the question of dysfunction, how do you account for such, I'm thinking of autism here, how do you account for such wide disparity from someone who is non-verbal, maybe not even engaging, to someone who might just appear a bit odd? How do you account for that wide disparity?
In autism or in ADHD? So if I take a step back as well and say more neurodiversity, one's development, how the brain is developing, is individual to everyone. And so there will be a spectrum. And the features may be more intense in certain domains and maybe less intense in other domains. So someone's verbal skills, someone's motor skills, someone's socializing, someone's attention, someone's energy can be very, very different. So it's not one measure fits everyone. And rather than a spectrum meaning from A to Z, it's more like a mixer deck. So the disc jockey's got all these tabs and things that can be up or down. So it can be of different intensities in each of those domains. Yeah. So thanks everyone for having me again. I hope that was informative and not too much info, but I do hope it helped to understand this particular condition, and hopefully it gets us involved to look after those around us who may be struggling with those things. All right.
Thank you again, Dr. Kaj, for his professional presentation and for the information he provided us with today. I'm sure that a lot of the information Dr. Kaj has given us today, we can actually use it. And that's the premise behind him and others coming to these kind of forums to educate us so that we can use the information to help others who may be experiencing similar or may know of someone who's experiencing something similar. Also, I'd like to thank you all for fielding your questions. I know that when you go home, something may have cropped up that you may would want to ask Dr. Kaj. I believe you'll be coming back again to field those questions that you have that you may not have thought of at the time, and be able to answer them as best you can. So thank you again, Dr. Kaj, and give him a hearty round of applause for his presentation. At this moment in time, I'll ask us to stand and I'll ask our dear elder and the Magaza to pray for us to go on our merry way.
I hope there's nobody with ADHD in here. It's just, let us pray. Father, thank you again for this wonderful time that we've spent with our friend doctor, who is coming every now and again to inform us. There might be some questions that we've forgotten, but when they come to mind, Father, we just want to jot them down so that we can send and forward them to him so that we can be better informed. And may this information that we have attained this afternoon, Father, if we can put it to use. There are some of us who have got people who are suffering from this disease, whether within our homes or maybe within the communities that we're coming from or relatives that are afar. May we be in a position to impart the knowledge that we've acquired so that it can help. Otherwise, this information will be of no use if we just receive it and keep it to ourselves and never put it to use. So Lord, be with our visitor as he goes about his business. Protect him, Lord, so that he will be able to support people or patients within his community and also be in a position to come back again when we invite him. And for all of us, Father, we have come to the close and the end of this day. Keep us safe throughout the week. We know it's a long holiday on Monday, bank holiday. We're praying, Father, that you keep us safe and that we'll be able to come back and meet again in this place Sabbath coming. Thank you for listening and hearing our prayer. We ask and believe in your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please be reminded that next Sabbath at 4 o'clock, it will be Dr. Anthony Annan who will be here to present to us a better understanding of ischemic heart disease. So please come, take your seat, and let's enjoy these presentations. Thank you.